Hey everybody, Corey here coming at you with another knife review. This time it is of the CJRB Feldspar. This is the full-size version. I try to buy a new knife every month, so if you're interested in more content like this, consider subscribing. Alright, as always, let's start with some size comparisons. Here it is next to the Ontario Knives Rat Model 2. Here it is next to the Off-Grid Knives Scorpion. The Rat 2 is our conventionally small knife. The Off-Grid Knife Scorpion is our conventionally large knife. My camera does some weird things with the knives, so to prove to you that they're butt to butt, I'm going to use this flat surface right here. And we are going to make sure that they're all evenly aligned right there. Looks like they're not, but I promise they are. So it comes in about, actually about a 1/4 inch shorter than the Off-Grid Knife Scorpion in overall length, so you can tell this is definitely a full-size knife. Comes in about an inch longer than the Rat 2, so that should give you some pretty good comparisons there. I'm doing something different this time. I'm going to put all of the specs for this knife on the screen, along with the specs for the Scorpion and the Rat 2, so you can see exactly how different it is compared to the other two knives. So I'll give you a second to look at that before we move on. Alright, so let's talk about the ergos for the CJRB Feldspar. So overall, it definitely has a very good handle shape. I like the handle shape. It's very comfortable. It just naturally fits in your hand. It swells where it's supposed to swell. It's got a good shape. There are a few things, however, kind of holding this back from being perfect, for me. First of all, they're all the same. They're all kind of about hot spots. So first of all, the pocket clip, you can kind of see where it was pressed up against my hand right there. There's something about it. I can't quite explain it, but right where the pocket clip is, it's just a hot spot for me. It presses into my hand and I feel it every time I bear down on the knife. The other thing I want to talk about, so this is actually the opposite problem that most knives have. Most knives don't give you enough access to this lock bar. I believe the Feldspar actually gives you a little too much access to the lock bar. As you can see, there's a cutout on this side of the scale so that you can get, really easy access to that lock bar. However, in my experience, what that has ended up doing on the Feldspar is it's creating a hot spot right here, because this side is actually so much ahead of the scale that they cut to give you access that when you really grip the knife, when you bear down on it, you can see right there, that is where, even though it doesn't, see, right there, that's where my skin actually gets, pinched by this lock bar insert, and there's a lot of pressure right there because that's the only thing that part of my hand is making contact with at that point in time when I grip the knife. So just something to point out. And oh, by the way, the lock bar, in my opinion, if I kind of run it across my nail, you can see right there that it actually kind of shaves off the tip of my nail. Maybe it's just mine, but it's kind of sharp. It's a little uncomfortable, and I'll be honest, not trying to be a snob here, but it is something that I think about every single time I disengage the lock. I disengage it and I go, I don't like it. I don't like it. The only other thing I'll say from an ergonomics perspective, because it has to do with handling, this knife has a pretty strong detent. And what that means is that you're going to have to put a decent amount of effort into flipping it open. You're also going to have to make sure that your thumb placement on the thumb stud is, I mean, I don't want to say perfect, but you have to really think about it. One of the things I think they could have done better with the thumb stud, I think they could have done one more little ring at the very top. You see how the top of the thumb stud is polished? And it's actually a pretty wide surface area. I actually, if I use the very top of the thumb stud, if I actually try to push down from the very top, I actually can't, oh my God, I actually can't open the knife. You really do have to kind of hit it from the side where those ridges are to get the knife to open. The top is just, it's too polished. I really can't use it. So, you know, between all those things, it's not the worst knife in the world, don't get me wrong. But, you know, there are a few things that kind of hit me the wrong way every single time I touch this knife. You know, I pull it out of my pocket and I go, oh, right, I gotta get the right placement on the thumb stud. And then I grab it and, you know, I'm using it and I'm going, ah, eh, I kind of feel that right there. And then I'm done using it and I go to close it and I go, ah, it's kind of, you know, kind of hits my thumb. You know, again, look, it's like a $35 knife. I can't blame it for too much. And again, the overall handle shape, it's good. It is good. Overall, I'll say it's good. That's what I'm going to say about the Ergos for now. So what does the knife do well? What do I think it could improve on? Well, I think it has a very functional blade shape. I think, you know, it's just a very usable knife. It has a functional blade shape with a lot of belly, excuse me. It comes to a relatively fine tip so that if you need to pierce and then pull, you know, that's not a problem. It's got relatively thick blade stock that tapers down, so it's a pretty durable knife, but, you know, you can do some finer cutting if you absolutely have to. You know, the handle, it's good enough, like I just said with the Ergonomics, it's good enough. The blade shape is functional. I don't really have any significant problems with this knife. However, it is striking me, you know, as quote-unquote like the kind of a Honda Civic of knives. It does everything pretty well, but it's not really the best at anything. I will say, I think, you know, for the price that you're paying, we'll talk more about this later, but, you know, for the price that you're paying, a full-size knife in D2 that has decent ergonomics, it's not a bad deal. I mean, you wouldn't be a fool for buying this knife at all, let's put it that way. One thing I do like, I like the brass pivot collar. I know it's not really functional, but it just adds a little bit of flair to this knife that, you know, a lot of budget knives don't have. A lot of budget knives don't go the extra mile when it comes to adding things. They wouldn't have a brass pivot collar. They wouldn't necessarily have a stonewash blade, which, by the way, I do like the stonewash on the blade. Don't judge the spine. I actually polished that just for giggles at some point, so the spine will not actually come that reflective. But, you know, it's got a good stonewash. The G10 looks pretty good. It's contoured G10. The handle is fine. The pocket clip is fine. Everything is good, okay? It's pretty good. In terms of what it could do better, you know, at this price, I really can't say a whole lot. I would have liked for them to have plugged up this hole with something on this side, you know, that they made for the left-handed people if you want to switch the pocket clip. I could get into the gripes of, well, you recess the pocket clip, but you use these button head screws. I don't know. I mean, it's just, on a knife at this price point, I can't really say it's that big of a deal. And oh, by the way, you can see it right now. Check out in there. They did skeletonize the liners a little bit to reduce the weight, so, you know, it's not the heaviest knife in the world. I think they did as good of a job that they should be doing at this price point. There's really nothing egregious here, so I don't really think I can call out much more that they can objectively do better at this price point. I would like for them to maybe reduce the amount of this cutout here, you know, to get rid of the problem that I talked about earlier. Maybe chamfer the inside of this this portion of the liner so that it's not quite so sharp. And again, finally, from an ergonomics perspective, give me one more little ring at the very top so I don't have to think so much about where I'm putting my finger when I open the knife. Other than that, you know, the action, it's really smooth. It's smooth, it's snappy when you hit it the right way. I can't really complain too much. Oh, by the way, guys, this is on ceramic ball bearings. I mean, that's pretty cool for a $36 knife. It's good, okay? It's good. That's where I'll leave it. So let's talk about quality control. From a QC perspective, honestly, I really have nothing to say. The knife has no front back, no side to side blade play. The bevel, I have not sharpened this knife. The bevel looks pretty darn even on both sides. None of the screws have ever come loose. The pocket clip doesn't come loose. QC, it's fine. There are no unintended imperfections on this knife that I can really see. Gosh, if I want to nitpick, let's see. Let's go all the way up to the top. Look at that, right there. That's the only thing I can think of. Right there, there's like a little nick on the spine of the blade. This is the dumbest thing. This is the dumbest thing I've ever complained about in a knife video, but literally, it's the only thing that I could really recognize from a QC standpoint. Right there. Just the tiniest little guy. That's it. That came with the knife. Other than that, again, I mean, I don't want to cop out here, but I think this is done as well as it could be done for a knife in this price range. Alright guys, let's talk about value. So you can usually find the CJRB Feldspar, the full-size version, for about 35 bucks, okay? Now, compare that to a Rat 2, okay? A Rat 2 in D2 is going to run you about 35 bucks. So, I'm going to oversimplify this here, but, you know, in terms of how much knife you're getting for the exact same price, and oh, by the way, the CJRB has ceramic ball bearings. And oh, by the way, the CJRB has G10, right? The Rat 2 has nylon. The Rat 2 is running on washers, not ceramic ball bearings. You know, it's not the end of the world, right? It's not the end of the world. But when you put these two side by side, the Rat 2 is a little bit of a hard sell. You know, objectively, when I look at what the Feldspar is made of, and how much more knife you get for the exact same price, you know, I don't think there's any comparison. And oh, by the way, the Rat 1 in D2 is even more expensive than that. So, in that regard, the CJRB kind of wins for me. I don't know where you can really get much better value for about 35 bucks. I mean, ceramic ball bearings, D2 and G10 in a deep carry pocket clip, with a nice little brass pivot collar accent. You know I had a few complaints about this knife, but honestly, when you put it into perspective from the view of price point, the Feldspar is great. I mean, it's really checking a bunch of boxes. If this was your first knife you ever bought, you would be in a really good position. That's what I have to say about value. So let's talk about my personal opinions about this knife. So for me, this is not my favorite knife, you know? And again, I hate to keep bringing it out. Here's the Rat 2, right? You can get this for about 35 bucks too. I'm gonna be honest. I'm not trying to be dramatic here. Between the thumb stud, you know, how I talked about, you gotta kind of hit it perfectly, and it's got kind of a strong detent. And between the ergonomic issue right there, and the hot spot on the pocket clip, and the fact that every time I think about it, it's just a little uncomfortable. You know, for me, I would pick the Rat 2. And I know it's not necessarily a fair comparison because, well, this is a full-size knife and this is a smaller knife, and if you really wanted the equivalent Rat knife, you'd have to get the Rat 1, which is bigger, and it costs a little bit more. But, you know, when you're not comparing, right? When you're not comparing the Feldspar to anything, it's fine. It's good. It's good value. For 35 bucks, it's really good value. But when you start comparing it to, you know, knives that have stood the test of time and knives that have really earned their reputation, like the Rat 2 or the Rat 1, honestly, I would say just spring for a Rat 1. You know, put an extra 10 bucks into it and just go get yourself a Rat 1. It is more comfortable. I think the CJRB has more going for it from a material standpoint. You know, it's got a better action. It's made out of G10 and not nylon, but guys, come on. In the grand scheme of things, whatever kind of plastic this is made out of, it's really not going to matter in the long run. You know, yeah, the CJRB, it's great that it's G10, but it's not really doing a whole lot for me, you know, when I compare the knives. So, you know, that's just my personal takeaway. I think if you're going to use your knives, then I would definitely invest in either the Rat 1 or the Rat 2 still at this price point. If you're looking for a knife that you're going to use, but you also want it to actually be a little sexy, I do think the CJRB looks nice. I think it clearly, in my personal opinion, is more attractive than the Rat 2. I love the stonewash finish. I love the brass pivot collar. You know, it looks good. It does look good. As an overall user at this price point, I don't know. I mean, you know, you get more knife, so if you're just looking for more knife, then that's something to consider. But again, a strictly utilitarian user, I would say stick with the Rat 2 or the Rat 1. For a knife that maybe you don't use every day, like for your job, or that you might want to show off to someone, or that you just kind of want to be a little bit proud of, or think it looks, you know, kind of attractive every single time you pull it out, maybe the Feldspar is what you're looking for. That's just my personal opinion here. So guys, I hope you found this video entertaining. I'm trying to really strike a balance between what you guys want and what feels natural for me. This is just how I feel about the CJRB Feldspar. They're my honest opinions. I don't think I, you know, killed this knife. It's a good knife, you know. Like I said, Honda Civic, good at everything, best at nothing. That being said, again, I don't think you would be disappointed if you bought this knife. It's a good knife overall. It's not going to let you down. So, hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys next time.